So we are going to start the webinar. So thank you everyone once again for being here today. My name is Juliana, and I'm the founder of EduSolve, and I'm going to show you how to build your AI implementation roadmap today, which is very exciting. Once again, I'm going to answer some questions at the very end. But if you have any questions that you want to ask, just feel free to put it in the chat. And just to keep things organized, we are going to be communicating with each other via chat. Okay, let's start. First things first. I love starting my presentations with a bit of a Stoic mindset, which is this quote that you see on the screen right now: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your biggest challenge is your clearest path to progress. So what I'm basically trying to say here is, I know there's a lot of noise at the moment around AI, and it's difficult to know where to start from. It's difficult to know how to take the first step. And this is the exact reason why we are here. I want to give you a little bit of clarity and show you these first steps to take. At the top of the screen, you can see the topics that we're going to cover today, one by one. We're going to start, of course, with the intro, then we move to why it matters, readiness audit, getting started, identifying the gaps, and then your roadmap, your frameworks, and the question and answer session at the very end. Right. Before we start, let me just tell a little bit more about myself. It's going to be very quick here. My name is Juliana, and I've been in the international education industry for about 17 years. And now my mission is to build the bridge between student recruitment and AI and digital transformation for institutions globally. My focus is on AI, automation, implementation, AI literacy training, orchestration, EdTech, and the frameworks that I use are always focused on strategy, systems, and scalability. Okay, that's enough about me. Let's start with the first question, which is a very classic one. What is AI? But before I answer this question, I do want you guys to answer a question for me first. And that's basically on the poll that I'm going to run now. So you're going to see two questions on the screen. I'm just going to open the poll. Yeah, so you should see two questions popping up right now for you. The first one is, where are you on your AI journey? That's the first question. And the second one, if you just scroll down a little bit, you're going to see a second question, which is, what is your main priority for today's session? Okay, I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer this poll. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing the answers. Yeah, we have, oh, you guys are doing it very quickly. Thank you. Almost all of you already answered. I'm just going to give you a few more seconds before I end the poll. But most of you are excited about what is possible, which is good. Some of you are skeptical but curious to learn more. Overwhelmed by how fast things are moving. I hear you. Worried about being left behind. I'm still figuring it out. I love that. And then the second one is, the main one is finding specific, what is your main priority for today's session, finding specific tools for me and my team, and then learning what is actually possible with AI and building a long-term strategy. And I'm open to learn whatever comes my way. Perfect. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for everyone who answered. You can see the results now, just for a few seconds, because once I close the poll, we're going to move to the next slide. But thank you very much. I think that's very useful to know. Okay, so back to the presentation. I am very much looking forward to answering this question because I absolutely love answering this classic question, what is AI? And I love to answer this with an acronym. It's my framework A, which I call GAP. And it's not the Gap you're thinking, it's not the fashion brand. It's actually, in my opinion, is more exciting than that. It stands for generation, autonomy, and pattern. Yeah, so to give you an example, a practical example, to illustrate each of these sections. With generation, the first one, we are going to use the example of recruiting new agent partners, which is probably something that is familiar to all of us here in this session. Generation is the creation process. So, for example, drafting 20 personalized emails to your agents in a market in seconds. Yeah. So when you have to generate emails, in this case, it's content. That's the generation. That's the G part of the framework. Yeah. Then we go to the autonomy, which is the system that automatically handles the follow-ups until a meeting is booked. So the AI is an autonomous system that makes decisions by itself. Yeah, and that differs from the automation. And we're going to cover this a little bit later in the session today as well. And the pattern, which is my favorite, and where most of the value of AI lies on, okay? Because that's about the behavior. Identifying, in this example that I'm giving you here today, the pattern would identify what agents from what region are booking meetings and which ones are not. Yeah, so that identifies a pattern. So it gives you answers and clarity on what decisions to make and how to move to the next step. So that shouldn't be on you. It should be on AI to do it for you. And that's the beauty of AI, is the fact that it can read all these patterns that we as humans, we normally wouldn't be able to do. At least not without a very robust system that measures everything. Yeah. Then the next thing, yeah. Sorry, just the framework B. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. So the framework B is what I call triple M's: map, motion, and mind. And this framework is about the front end. So the one I just showed you, the GAP framework, is the back end. So it's basically what happens in the background, the part that you don't see on the day-to-day. So when you're using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever that is that you are using on a day-to-day, you don't see that part, the framework A. But here on the framework B is the parts that you do see. And that's important to understand as well, because in order for you to fully understand the value of AI and how to use it properly, you need to understand how the back end and the front end communicate and work with each other. So the map is the workflow, which is designed by a human, step-by-step logic, from a form to an email communications as an example. Yeah, because here, as you can see on the screen, I have a practical example on the student journey, which starts on the inquiry form, and then it becomes a lead eventually, right? So it's from inquiry to lead, that's the journey. So in order for that to happen, we need to design the workflow, the map, and then we need to create an automation, which is the motion, that moves the student data that is captured from the form and is moved to a system, for example, a CRM system. Yes, some of you may use Salesforce, others may use HubSpot, or you might use a completely different system. There are so many of them anyway. But basically, that's what the automation does. It automates one specific area from A to B. That's it. There is no AI involved per se. Yeah. And then we have the mind, which is the AI, the brain. And as I said before, is the part that makes decisions by itself, interpreting the query to deliver a personalized response in this case, in this example that we are showing here. Yeah. So when you have a lead, when you have a student that is asking a question, first, you need to have a workflow. So what's going to happen? The student is going to send an inquiry, is going to ask a question. How is this going to happen? What are the steps that they're going to take? What's going to happen in our system? And that's basically the workflow, the step-by-step process that we need to put in place. And then the automation, which is moving data from A to B, point A to point B. And then the AI working in the background to transcribe and interpret the situation, make decisions, and generate an output. Okay, lovely. So that's the framework B. So let's move on to the next chapter, and that's the why it matters. I like to describe this one as with 3 words: innovate, adapt, and evolve. What this basically means is that traditional models are failing to deliver and to meet the expectations and the requirements of the modern student needs. And here I have 4 facts and figures to prove that. Yeah, from data, from research, that helps us understand what's happening and how fast things are changing. So the first one from the left, 46% of teams already use AI as their primarily search engine. Yeah, that's telling us a lot already just by that. Then the second one is 50% of K-12 students don't feel engaged with traditional educational content. And that's mainly due to the education model that we're still using. Yeah, so the new generation Alpha, generation Beta, Beta especially, the one that their first year was 2025 last year, they're gonna be fully grown in the AI era. So the way they're gonna learn, the way they're gonna absorb information is gonna be completely different to the way that we do now. And then the third one, which is 65% of children entering school today will work in jobs that do not exist yet. Yeah, it's crazy to think about it, isn't it? And that leads me to the next point, which is about the LinkedIn report that was published end of last year, 2025, that is showing the fastest growing jobs in the UK. And there is an equivalent for the US and other countries as well, just so you know, in case you're not from the UK. But I just had to pick one to make it easier to illustrate the numbers. But you can find that on other countries as well. But the thing is, all of them are showing very similar results, okay? The top jobs in the market right now are related to AI. The first one is AI engineer, and the second one is head of AI. And again, that's telling us a lot, right? Right, so let's get started with your readiness audit. And to do that, I have this checklist for myself. You can call it a framework, perhaps, but I like to call it checklist. Is ASE. So you have to look at your assets, your systems, and the expertise you have in your company right now. So let's look at what this actually means, right? Assets, the first one. Examples. You have a paid LLM. For those who are not 100% familiar with the acronyms, the large language model, which is ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok, DeepSeek. There's quite a few now. And a centralized data system to centralize your data. So these are the main assets you need to get started. Then we have the systems, as in procedures. As I said in the beginning, 2 or 3 slides ago, you have to map your workflows. Yeah, so you need to get that crystal clear. It's really, I really do not recommend anyone in any company, in any setting, to start even thinking or touching AI without having the workflows mapped out first. And equally important is to identify the gaps. Yeah, so where is the gap in your systems, in your procedures? So that's the first thing you need to look at. Yeah. And then lastly, but equally important, the expertise. Trained teams. Yeah, so AI literacy for yourself as a school owner or as a decision maker in your institution, and prompt literacy. Yeah, there's so much that is being discussed around prompt engineering. I know the name sounds a bit scary, prompt engineering, but what it basically means is knowing how to orchestrate the parts of the prompt in order to get the best output out of it. Yeah, so you need to have prompt literacy, because if you don't have a good input into the LLM of your choice, whichever one you're using, you're not going to get a good result back. Okay, and then for the next slide, let's get started on that. Literacy first. So before buying tools, question for you here. Is your team trained? Do they understand the basics of AI? Do they know how to write effective prompts? Yeah. Do they know how the LLMs think? Do they understand the mechanisms of it? Yeah, I'm not saying that we need to become tech people, experts overnight. That's definitely not the point here, but it's important to understand the basics. Yeah, and the ethics of data privacy. That's a big topic. Unfortunately, because we are on a time limit in this session, I can't cover this topic too much because there's a lot to cover on this topic. But perhaps I might have to do a session just on that. Anyway, but that's something that you need to look into. Yeah, because you are using data inside your company and your staff members are also using these LLMs in a business setting. So you need to be sure that they are being compliant with whatever they are putting in there. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is the tools and systems. So don't just automate business as usual. Yeah. Use this transition to audit what you currently have and fix broken steps. So if there is something that you already know that is not right, that's your chance to change the process. One thing that I find common when I'm talking to schools that are interested in implementing AI is that they want to keep everything exactly the same, but they want to put AI just to make things more efficient. Don't get me wrong, it can work in certain cases, but in many cases, the process is not optimized. So first, look at your process, at your systems, at the procedures that you have, and find, as I said before, find the gaps. And when you find the gaps, then fix the process first, and only then you start mapping out to implement a potential project on AI and automation. And then, of course, choose the right tools for the right circumstances, the right procedures, the right systems. It really depends on the goals. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, there is so much that can be done. It's like, it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes because really there is a lot that can be done. Okay, so let's put this in practice for a moment, right? the ASE framework, just to make it crystal clear. Assets, the technology part. The sub-framework, the assessment, architecture, and application. Yeah, so I try to keep everything very simple. So when I look at the sub-framework, as you can see there, I chose words that start with the same letter. So it's all A all over. Assets, assessment, architecture, application. So it's easy to remember, it's easy to apply. And the same with the other two sections at the bottom. But let's look at what that means first. The use case here is the agent workshop pipeline. So when you go to the workshop, when you attend an industry event, yeah, and you meet agents because you want to start the partnership with these agents, yeah, first thing you need to think about, where is this data going to? So you need a central engine for your data. This is the digital foundation where your leads, your systems, and your feature automations live. Yeah, so that's the first thing you need to get sorted. Then you have the systems, the processes, standardization, streamlining, and synergies. Yeah, so smart triggers for prep and follow-ups. AI reads your meeting notes to draft 50 bespoke emails based on your conversation. So this part is when you start implementing the automation and AI. So again, when you go to a workshop, you put the data from your agents into your system, and then you need to create systems within the system. Yeah, because when you say systems, we can, that's the thing, right? It means it can also be technology, but it also means processes, right? So that's why I use this translation, this translated words with it, and that's simply to make it easier to understand what side of the process I'm talking about. So in this one, the middle one, we are talking about processes. Yeah, so because the top one is the technology, and then the middle one is the process. So create a workflow that does the prep work, emailing these agencies as an example, and follow up afterwards. That's something that AI can do really, really well. And automation, same thing. When you automate the triggers to send emails to your leads, that's something that most CRM systems can do nowadays. However, as it stands, most people automate and still have a lot of manual work to do. So what you're trying to do here is to create workflows that add the AI, a layer of AI that does that job for you, so you don't have to do so much manual work. Yeah. And then the third one, which is the expertise, back to your people, you need to make sure they are trained enough. So there is education, there is efficiency, and there is evolution. So what I mean by evolution is continuous improvement. And that's the difficult part, because it requires maintenance. Yeah, it requires maintaining that level of learning with the staff members that sometimes can be difficult over time, because you think you deliver the training, you think they know it, but then a few days later, that's not what it is. Yeah, so that's I see that as a big challenge for many schools. So that has to go into your checklist. Yeah, in this particular example that we are using here, with this framework, the use case we have, the agent workshop pipeline. Imagine that your sales representative is the orchestrator. Yeah, so they are the ones that make it possible for the assets and the systems to work together. Without your team involved, those two, the assets and the systems, they're not going to work. They're not going to be able to speak to each other. Yeah, so they focus on your team focus on the high value human relationship, and the AI and the automation and everything in the background will do the research, the drafts, and tailor the outreach needed to close the deal. What does it mean? It means that basically your team needs to focus on, as an example, schedule meetings. They need to focus on the human touch. The AI is not going to start talking to parents, talking to students. Your team has to do that. But for your team to do that, you need the automation in the background, right? You need something working in the background to handle the admin tasks that your team doesn't need to do. Enough of this framework for now. I think that gives you a lot of how to find the gaps. Now, let's talk about the AI tool ecosystem. And of course, I have another framework because I love frameworks, as you can see. But this one doesn't have an acronym, okay? Just so you guys don't get bored of acronyms. So the layer on the left-hand side will be the foundation, the bottom, the bridge, which is the connector, and the engine, which is where the value sits, yeah? Because it's the brain. Now, the foundation is your AI assistant for daily work. And what's the impact? So your daily AI assistant, in this case, could be your ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whichever LLM you like. It generates as many digital assets as possible, like images, slides, graphics, reports, whatever that is. Then you need to get a paid account. So if you don't have one, think about it, because that's very important. And centralize as much as possible there. That does not mean that you should only use one LLM the whole time, because each LLM is good at something. However, when it comes to your daily work, the more information you can feed into one model, the more that model is going to learn about you, about your business, about your team, and the better the quality of the outcome will be. Yeah, so that's basically what the foundation means. The bridge stores the data in one place, and the impact is AI is only as good as your data and input, which is what I said earlier. A structured ecosystem is vital for success. If your lead data is scattered or messy, your AI outputs will be fragmented and unreliable. So I know data is a complicated topic. I think it's always complicated, right? Data is not easy to manage. We know that. But start thinking about how you're managing your data. Because without a clean and clear data, organized, tidy, markdown, is really difficult to implement AI in it. Because the AI gets lost when the data is disorganized. And the engine, it's about running your processes automatically 24/7. This is the automation layer. Create systems and processes that run in the background, doing all the boring tasks for you. This means that more time for you and your team to focus on the tasks that the AI cannot replace. Yeah, so this is the AI tool ecosystem for you to start identifying your gaps. Now, how to choose your tools. This is a flow chart, is a high-level flow chart. It goes a long way if you get into details, but this one will give you a very good first step to get started. Starting from the top, the question is how to choose your tools. First question you need to ask, do you have a paid account? And if it's a question of yes or no, if it's no, that's the starting point. So get that first, yeah? Then if it's a yes, what's the biggest pain right now? And in this flow chart, I'm giving you 3 possible pathways, but just bear in mind that these 3 options are just examples, because in theory, these options could keep going. You could have hundreds of them. But here I'm giving you 3 for you to use as reference. Yeah, because the idea here is for you to create your own flow chart. So what's the biggest pain right now? So let's go through these examples that I'm giving you. Is your team snowed on their inquiries every day? So get a bridge tool. For example, a CRM that is properly mapped out. Second, content takes too long. So you might have a marketing team that is like, oh my God, I'm just taking so much time creating content. So you need a productivity tool. And then the third one, not responding fast enough. That's classic, yeah? Which is essentially when you have your team that is supposed to answer inquiries, but they just cannot reply fast enough because they are trying to do 1 million things at the same time, and they don't know where to start, or sometimes they are going to be caught in the middle of something else, and then the high priorities end up going to the bottom of the list, which is something that we do not want to see happening. I'm sure we've all been there, right? It's a classic situation in any institution. So what you need to do here is build the engine layer. Yeah, for those who don't remember, the engine layer is the automation. Yeah, so you need to automate the workflows, the processes, A to B, B to C, D to E, and so on. And then the very bottom, the last part is, can you summarize the problem in one sentence? Can you explain the problem in one sentence? If the answer is yes, you're ready to pick your tool. If your answer is no, you need to go back to the beginning. Okay, but listen, this is not to make you stress around it. This is just a reference. Don't get stressed. Don't panic about it. It's just, of course, a bit of guidance to help you orchestrate that roadmap, to help you put those pieces of the puzzle together. Okay. And then the next thing is another framework, because today the session is all about your AI implementation roadmap. So it's all about frameworks, techniques, and processes and guidelines to help you get started. Yeah, and this is just the first session. We are going to have more webinar sessions very soon. Right, so let's look at this one. Is what I call PPP, PPP, which stands for plan, prompt, and prototype. Let's look at what this means. Practical example here is recruiting new agent partners. Yeah, so let's look at this particular example. So when you are recruiting new agent partners, what do you have to do with your plan, prompt, and prototype? So plan is the audit. Let's start with that. So you divide the tasks into steps. So for example, when I want to recruit new agent partners, I want to attend event A, event B, event C, event D. I want to spend X amount of money on the budget, and I want this communication plan, such as the automation process of following up, which I mentioned earlier in the session. And then you have to find the gaps. So where are the gaps? Where can you find gaps in the process? That, for example, it might be that your CRM system doesn't have any automation set up. That's a gap. That's a big gap. Yeah. Then define the case, what exactly you're trying to achieve. So in this case, in this example, what you want to achieve is create a clear communication plan when you are recruiting your new agents. So you know exactly the touch points when you're going to talk to them before the event, during the event, after the event, 6 months after the event. And then we move to the second part. So when you have that crystal clear, you move to the second part, which is the prompt. The prompt is the case. So define the ideal scenario. So what would the ideal scenario be? Oh, the ideal scenario would be for me to have, let's say, 20 new agents in the pipeline. And I want them to receive this number of communication emails and this number of calls. So create the instructions, then ask your LLM to create the exact prompt for you following its own guidelines. What does it mean? That's extremely important, and I cannot emphasize this enough. When you are using, let's say, ChatGPT, the most popular one, you want to ask ChatGPT to give you the prompt. Okay, so you ask ChatGPT, give me a prompt. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. Full stop. Give me a prompt that is optimized for ChatGPT. And then you do exactly the same in Gemini if you use Gemini. Or if you use Copilot from Microsoft. I actually completely forgot about Copilot for a second. Yeah, so if you use Copilot, the same. So give me the prompt optimized for Copilot. And then it's going to give you the prompt. You feed it back into the LLM. And then when it gives you the output, that's when you move to the next step. And that's the prototype. That's when you start building. Yeah. So refine the output based on your reality and goals. Ask the LLM to build the workflow for you. And then when you create it, it's time to test the scenario. And that part is usually when it gets, of course, it's not always simple in every step. Sometimes you just need to spend a little bit of time going through trial and error. But the logic that you're seeing on this screen is the first step. You can't really do much without nailing this framework first. Okay? Right. So what we discussed today in the session, to recap, was these things on the screen. Intro, why it matters, readiness audit, get started, identifying the gaps, roadmap and frameworks. And now we're going to the question and answer session. These are my contact details for those who would like to contact me after this. And also what I would like to invite you to do is I'm going to leave a link on the chat. Yeah, here we go. I'm just pasted a link on the chat for my calendar. So if you'd like to, of course, to book a session after this, I'll be very happy to have a discussion. But in the meantime, I'm open to questions if you have any questions. And I will ask you to put it in the chat. Yeah, because just to keep things organized in the session, I'm keeping everyone on mute just so we keep our communication on the chat. But maybe for the next sessions, I might consider a different approach. Let's see how it goes. Right. So do you guys have any questions or anything that you brought that you wanted to bring to this session? Or anything you want to share? Any feedback, any insights, any ideas? Or anything that you maybe are trying to build right now that you want to share with everyone? One question that I get very often is, in fact, it's not really a question, it's more of an objection. And I hear all the time people saying, oh, but my team doesn't like changes. How are you going to deal with those changes? How you're going to manage that? It's about the change management, right? And one thing that I have to say here is, and that's my motto, the new routine for all of us will be regular changes. Yeah, will be regular changes on a daily basis. Yeah, it sounds a bit paradoxical, but it's gonna be the new normal, basically. We will have to all get used to dealing with changes very often. Yeah, because that's gonna go on for a while. But that's good. I see that as a good thing. It's changing. Many things are changing, but many things will change for better. So we have a question here from Erica. First of all, thanks for a brilliant presentation. Thank you. How do you think that as a sales team, we can start to implement this to don't scare people that might be skeptical? Yeah, that's a very good question, Erica. Thank you very much. Yeah, so the first thing I would do is get started with those frameworks that I shared. They are simple for a reason. The PPP, for example, the triple P, I made them simple enough in a way that everyone understands how to create the divisions. Yeah, the plan is basically putting your ideas together in a way that makes sense. So if you can explain this to somebody, the idea to somebody, you have a plan. Yeah, and then once you have the idea defined in your head, then prompt in the way that I explained with the asking the ChatGPT or the LLM of your choice to structure that prompt for you to optimize the results, and then start with the prototype. When your team or whoever you're working with, when they start seeing these outputs, the benefit of this output, it's very likely that they will start feeling a little bit more relaxed and put the guard down. Is a process. No one is going to become supportive of an idea that they are not supporting overnight. No one does that, right? So everyone needs time. And when you start experimenting and you start seeing the results, that's normally when people feel less skeptical and put the guard down and become a bit more open-minded, perhaps. Yeah, that's my experience. I think people need to see to believe. But to see to believe, you need to start experimenting. So slowly, the best way to do it is to implement small steps, baby steps into your daily life, daily tasks at work. And above all, deliver the literacy to the team, just so they understand what that is. Because sometimes people are skeptical because they don't understand. That's the barrier. So once you remove that barrier of understanding, that's normally when people start getting more involved. Yeah. Then we have a question from Katie. My organization uses Copilot. It seems Copilot is less powerful than other tools out there. Is this just my false assumption? Should organizations using Copilot consider different LLM tools? Katie, that's a very good question. In the AI space, Copilot is considered perhaps it depends on what you want to achieve, but in comparison, let's put it this way, yeah, in comparison to the other models, Copilot is behind. Okay, so let's put it this way. However, it doesn't mean it's a bad tool. I would never say it's a bad tool. Personally, I like Copilot because up until last year, before the other tools, the other LLMs caught up, Copilot was the best one in terms of memory, in terms of remembering things. It was the best. Now they're all caught up. All the LLMs are more or less in the same bucket, in the same category of knowledge. But Copilot used to be the best one in terms of memory. But yeah, in terms of output, I would recommend you consider other LLMs as well. It doesn't mean that it's mandatory. It's not like you have to do it in order to get somewhere. I would never say that. But my best advice is do an A/B testing. So use your Copilot as you normally do, and then have a second LLM as an option B. Let's put it this way, and then you start comparing the results and see which one suits you best. Right. And then the next one is from Shakil Ahmed. Excellent and to the point. We have recently implemented AI assistant to respond to initial inquiries on our web page. That's amazing. I believe data is not a problem for established entities. It's about training your system as it's like a newborn baby with lots of desire to learn. Mapping your processes is the key. Yeah, 100%, Shakil, 100%. Mapping your processes is the key. That's one of the first steps, is the starting point, basically. Thank you for sharing that. But good to know that you started already. It's very good to see. Then we have Rini, a co-pilot is best for Microsoft Windows software like Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Yes, yes. So I think the thing about Copilot, right, is that it seamlessly integrates with the Microsoft suite. Yeah, so if you are a massive Microsoft user for everything that you do using the Microsoft ecosystem, Copilot will just integrate, will connect with it seamlessly, right? You're not even gonna need to use connectors or anything. It just goes very smoothly. In the same way with Gemini, if you are in the Gmail, the Google Workspace, Gemini is going to be the best because the way it connects with the workspace is seamlessly. You don't even feel it. When you're using Gemini, for example, for you to connect with your tools, for you to use Gemini inside your Google Sheet, inside your Word, Google Slides, Google Sheets, the Gemini is sitting there, right there. So all you need to do is just click on a button. But it's not the same with the other LLMs, isn't it? So I guess it depends on where your existing tools are sitting. No problem, Kate. Thank you too. Any other questions? I think I covered quite a few of them. But if you have more questions, we still have a few more minutes, maybe 5 minutes. If anyone else has any questions that you want to ask. Thank you for your presentation. Good food for thought on how to roll out AI. No problem at all, Rini. Thank you very much for coming to the session. Cynthia, thank you so much, Juliana. It was really helpful. Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna finish the session here. Thank you once again for attending the session, for being with me today. This session is going to be on YouTube, on the channel from EduSolve. Sorry, just one more question from Erica. How do you find the AI in HubSpot? Yeah, Breeze. Breeze works well for certain things. So if you need the AI to summarize some things, to do data enrichment, it's gonna work really, really well. But it's not gonna do everything. It's not an LLM. Yeah, it's a tool. It's an extra tool that helps you manage your data, especially the data in HubSpot. But it's very good. I like Breeze. It's helpful, but it's an add-on. Let's put it this way. Cristiano, thank you for all the content shared. Digital literacy is mandatory nowadays. Yes, that's true. Thank you very much for attending the session. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm gonna end it here. And if you want to rewatch it, you're gonna receive an email with the link to the recording. And stay tuned, because in fact, let me finish with one thing before you go. It's this sentence here that is my favorite. The AI technology available today is the worst it will ever be. The future belongs to those who start their digital transformation now. If you can dream it, AI can do it. And stay tuned, because more sessions are coming soon, and I would love to have you with me again. Thank you very much.